much for joining us for another terrific episode of Logistics with Purpose. I am your host today. I'm Kristi Porter with Vector Global Logistics as Chief Marketing Officer, and it's been a while, but I'm excited to be here with Nuria Sierra, who is our Global Marketing Director at Vector Global Logistics. Nuria, how is the weather in London?
Oh, well, honestly, today it's been gorgeous. It's
Oh,
been like 14 degrees Celsius. So it feels like a proper spring. Well,
okay, good.
not very warm, but anyway, it's
Well, most of the
really nice.
conversations we have, of course, are it's cloudy and rainy. So I'm
Yeah.
glad that it's gorgeous today for you. We are excited to have one of our good friends on the podcast, many years in the making. I'd like to welcome Nathan Stuck, entrepreneur, nonprofit leader, TEDx speaker, lecturer, author, host, podcast, founder and CEO at Profitable Purpose Consulting, and chairperson at B Local Georgia, and also just a good friend to Vector Global Logistics, and actually was our B Corp consultant as well. So, Nathan, thanks so much for being here. This is going to be fun.
That bio is so long, I almost fell asleep. I'm like, which
I
hat am I
know.
supposed to be wearing right now?
Hyphen. Yeah.
I'm just glad you didn't read the whole extended one. It's always weird when people are like describing you and you're like, I'm not that important.
Yeah.
I
They're
just
through
love
it.
B
Yeah.
Corps a lot. And don't worry, Nuria, I have the rain and the clouds today in Athens, Georgia. So
Oh, switch.
Oh,
hopefully, well, I've got my mute button ready on the Yeti if I need to, if the thunder rolls in, but we'll hope for the best.
Yes.
I can send you some sunshine from here.
No, we need the pollen to go away, so we'll
That's
take the rain today.
Okay. All right, Nathan. Sorry, am I saying it properly? It's Nathan,
Yeah.
right? Nathan, sorry. Okay, so let's break the ice with some quick fire questions. So just say the first thing that comes to your mind. And, well, are you ready?
The toughest part for me is a quick fire, short
Yeah.
answer for Nathan, but I'll do my best.
Okay. Okay, let's go. So, what kind of music do you love?
Oh, everything but metal. But I would say being from Miami and growing up in the late '90s, I guess I'm still growing up, but hip hop, rap, R&B, and then but literally there's like three different types of music. I have my background blurred, but there's like a hip hop poster behind me. There's like a pop like EDM type poster. There's a Head and the Heart poster. So yeah, a little bit of everything.
Awesome.
Okay, right. Sweet or salty snacks?
Salty,
Right. A favorite hobby?
picking up trash,
That's very true.
Okay.
show you my calluses.
A quote that inspires you?
I guess because I did kind of like write a book about it. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job.
Hmm, nice. Very nice. And if you could travel anywhere in the world, where would you go?
Whew, I just got back from New Orleans, so I need a break from there. I've got Vegas at the end of the month. Anywhere in the world, I don't know. Yeah, I'm going. Berlin or Amsterdam all day, every day.
Okay.
Okay. Nice.
Awesome. That's very cool. Thank you. Some of that I didn't know either. So, and speaking of, I know a lot about what you do now. We talked a little over our times together about your childhood, but I'm excited to learn more because I don't know much about your background. So, tell us a little about your childhood and where you grew up.
I was actually born in Michigan. My mom's from Berlin. My dad's from Michigan, and then but I grew up in Miami. We moved there when I was 6, so we like to joke we were the smart ones in the family that got out of winter. So yeah, so I grew up in Miami and played baseball and decided just to be a student. So I came to Georgia. Maybe I could have walked on. I don't know if I was good enough. Anyway, so, but yeah, I played baseball my whole life and ended up coming to Georgia, and I guess I've been here pretty much the rest of my. I've been here longer than anywhere else now in Athens, which is crazy.
I was
Athens
gonna
has
say
a
you never left. Yeah,
well,
you
it's a
came.
weird like it's like it like pulls you like it's what was that Blues Traveler song? The hook brings you back. Like I don't know
Oh
what
yeah.
it is about this place, but it's just my wife and I both left like 3 or 4 different times before we ever met each other, and you just kind of like end up back in Athens, little Peter Pan world too, where you never grow
Yeah.
up.
Wow,
A lot of
that's
people love it.
amazing.
Hmm.
it's amazing how the variety that you have in your family, it's incredible. Okay, so looking back, is there a moment on your story from those early years that really influenced the path that you are on today?
Whew. I mean, I think my parents were fairly, and I guess progressive is the word, but I mean, honestly, like, I don't know. I think more than anything, I think it was, I've been working since I was like 13 years old. So I think I've got this work ethic, and even from, and like I had that view where like I reffed hockey, roller hockey in Miami. So it was outside. If you haven't done physical activity outside from like 8 in the morning until about 6 p.m. in Miami
Miami.
in
Yeah.
May or June, then you ain't living. We had these like mesh referees jerseys. So it's like
Oh, wow.
and well, just because otherwise you just melt. What are you gonna wear?
Of
Like the
course.
full hockey sweater? Like and by the end of the day, you had this like polka dot like tan from where the sun
Oh my
burns you through the
God.
holes. So, but then like, and you'd have this weird tan from like the top of your skates to the bottom of your shorts. So it would just like your legs would just be like red. So, but yeah, I just reffed a lot. And then I think also then I think getting into, my first job out of college was, did, well, I started in dispatch and then I did freight planning and that'll put some hair on your chest. Dispatching chicken trucks around Northeast Georgia, and it's just like all hours, every day, all day. People are like, "Oh, I'm like, you used to love the holidays." I'm like, "Not anymore. My trucks are all running today, so that you can get, a chicken breast tomorrow from the grocery store." So, I'd say those, and then honestly, for the B Corp stuff, I would say probably some jobs I had later in life where I went through like a 2 year patch of layoffs and the worst parts of capitalism, and that sent me down the B Corp path, kind of non-circuitously. But yeah, I would say that.
I love that. I think, yeah, many of us arrive non-circuitously in our destinations for sure, and it always makes for a more interesting path. As we discussed, you went to University of Georgia's Terry College of Business. Go Dogs.
Stick 'em.
Both.
Hoo hoo hoo. Sorry, you have to do that. I think that's a part of your agreement when you sign up to go to school there. Somebody says
That
go
is
dogs,
absolutely true.
you have to bark back into the microphone.
Everybody I know, yes, exact same way, which again, we'll talk about a little bit later, but you can always find Nathan at a conference because he is always wearing Georgia colors and his red blazer, and so he's always very easy to find. So you graduated both as a marketing graduate and then later as an MBA. So I'm curious, you've already had a lot of different experiences at this point. So including like already some in leadership positions, now education, work experience. How did all of this kind of mesh together and kind of more shape your leadership philosophy as well as setting you up for your, what would later become your business and how you approach that?
Well, first of all, fun story about I don't know if you have camera. Well, there'll be a little like the picture that y'all share. I don't know if there'll be video, but the shirt I'm
Yes,
wearing.
it's on YouTube. Yeah.
Oh, sweet. So the shirt that I'm wearing, originally somebody was designing it for Build Southeast in orange because that's kind of in our color palette. And I said no, and they were like, "Why not?" I said, "I went to Georgia. I'll never wear orange." The only orange I have is my little peach in my hat here, but
Yeah.
it's either red or bust. Now I feel like I'm letting the people down by not having that red jacket
You
on.
just closed out a bunch of our audience. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, nothing good in orange when you're a Georgia guy. Yeah, I mean, undergrad, I think I just wanted to do business. I think I always knew I liked business. My dad had the hockey rink, and that was kind of his deal. And mom was a teacher, and I probably would have taught honestly, and been like that's my other parallel universe is I teach American history and coach the high school baseball team until I find out what teachers make, and I was like, oh, just kidding. Uh,
Yeah.
I'll be able to find my passion somewhere else. Which is also tragic. That's a different soapbox rant to get on for a different
Yes.
day. But yeah, I think more than anything, it was got that got the marketing degree, and honestly too, like it's the difference between like paying your way through college or like having the career plan already figured out. And I graduated in 3 years because I didn't really know what else to do. other than get out as quickly as possible. And then didn't know what to do like job wise because I worked every summer. I was ripping hockey, so I went home and worked, and then came. And all of a sudden you graduate, and you're like, what do I do? And it was a job in Athens. It was like for this new trucking company from out of Iowa that was opening an office here, and I went, sure. Can you work hard? Yep. So that's how I ended up there. And then honestly, kind of chased a girl back here. So that took me to Vegas because then she broke up with me. So I was like, well, then I'm leaving. And we had an $80,000 load of Wendy's chicken nuggets go bad.
Wow.
Driver told me they got checked in. They did not, and ran out of fuel over the weekend. And it was like May. It was hot. Yeah, those chicken nuggets were no longer good. So anyway, so I went to the World Cup and I put my notice in, went to the World Cup in Germany, and came back, loaded up a moving truck, drove out to Vegas. And then out there too, I guess I was just a glutton for punishment. I got a job with Enterprise Rent-A-Car where you're like, oh, it's what, like 60 hours a week? This is easy. So I started doing that and ended up, but that took me into sales, which I did 3 years of outside sales and got to go over Utah, in Boise, Idaho, every single week. Utah, Boise, Idaho, Salt Lake City, Boise, Idaho, back to Vegas. So I think that was, you think about it, it's like these weird little things that happen where you're like, what am I selling? Like fleet management, but even like the trucking piece, okay, like operations. And then enterprise, I get, kind of the like management by numbers, like KPIs and all these things. And then I go into sales and I learn how to sell things and learn how to like ask questions and listen more than I talk, and still working on that one. And all these, all these things. And then all of a sudden I moved back to Athens, and then all of a sudden it was like one good year. I went back to that trucking company. They were just like, hey, you think, because he wrote me a letter of recommendation, and I was like, I wasn't great at sales. So, and I was kind of done with Vegas. I said 2 years, it had been 5. And so he's like, well, if you want your old job back, why don't you just move back to Athens? And I was like, oh, really? And so that first year was amazing. It was a perfect reset year after Vegas. And then like January 2nd, the next year, we found out that the client was like pulling the contract and they weren't going to tell us. And so like, it was really shady. And so by the end of that month, our CEO had convinced them to hire us, or at least offer us or allow us to interview for our own jobs. And so for some reason, I took that job, which was dumb because they've already shown their hand, but I went to work for them anyway. And basically, yeah, I set that whole operation back up from scratch. And then I got pulled in on Friday at like 3 in the afternoon to get axed again. And then, I had unemployment, I had a little bit of a severance, and so I did not look for a job. I did a lot of fun projects around the house. I ended up at like another horrible job that led me to another horrible job, and then finally one day the last one was so bad I sent an email telling them that I was, I said it in different words, but that I was no longer interested in working for them and never wanted to talk to them again. So, and again, 2014, guess what I did? I sat in Athens. I did not have the money to go to the World Cup this time, but I did watch the World Cup. So it all comes full circle. And then I realized, like, oh, I'm going to need to do something for money while I wait. Because I kind of made the decision, okay, I've always said I was going to get an MBA. The full-time MBA is in Athens, but I was always working full-time.
Right.
The professional one's in Atlanta, but I live in Athens. So it finally all made sense, but I had a year to kill. So that's how I became, I bartended. And then I was also the first Uber driver in Athens, Georgia. And yeah,
Fun claim to fame.
that's my
Yeah.
fun fact. But then from there, it was like, as soon as I got in, like Net Impact Club kind of ended that first semester of a 2-year program. And there's an email about working on a B Corp project. And again, you said it earlier, like you're kind of always where you're supposed to be. All that weirdness, and where you're like, what does this all mean? And then all of a sudden you're like, what's this B Corp project? And I just plugged away on that for really the next 3 semesters. Literally, like, by December of year 2, I was at their holiday party, and by like January 7th, I think I interviewed and accepted, and then by like February, I was running operations meetings,
Wow.
then going to work, and then helped them certify, and that's
That's
where
awesome.
the rest of the story starts, I guess.
Well, you mentioned a lot there, so I want to ask a couple of follow-up questions. So one, I feel like a lot of your story is going to be relatable to the people listening to this podcast, both in just kind of the twists and turns, as well as the travel and the setting up logistics and operations and ground floor type stuff and scaling and all of that. So because you have a wide variety in there, I'm curious, what are This may be out of good experience or out of bad experience, but what are a couple of leadership lessons you learned from all of those things?
It's where Kristi reminds me what she asked in the last question. I just
Yep,
started
yep,
rambling.
here we are. The cell phone calls go between us two people.
Yep. What were we talking about? Leadership. Let's see. I mean, I look back on some of my time at Enterprise, and like you go through the management trainee program or whatever that everybody's done. So like even the CEO, even if it was like the founder's daughter, I guess it was founder, then son, then his daughter. Anyway, you go through that, and like, man, I look back and like, how does it? I mean, okay, so I was a servant leader, and that I will work harder than everybody. I learned some lessons in trucking of like making good on my word. When you're 21 years old and you're managing some 60-year-old man that's driven truck for 40 years, and you're like, do it this way. He just looks at you like, I'll backhand you, and you're like, all right, do it however you want to do it. Like, so, but I look back at Enterprise, and there's like things that I don't want to say I'm embarrassed of, but like I didn't fully know how to. I think I was so ambitious at certain times that like I didn't know how to manage people who like didn't want to be CEO. And so like, in a weird way I like looked down and like, you're the worst employee ever. Why would you just want to be, but and you're like, and now in hindsight, well, one of them I actually reached out 2 years later. I was like, I was kind of an a-hole, man. I'm sorry about that. Like he's like, no, all good. But yeah, you look back and like this, the only way you learn those lessons is kind of by doing. And so I would say the acceptance of people who maybe, and it's not a lack of drive, it's just that that's what they want to do, man. I want to drive truck, or I just, I have the one guy at Enterprise was an artist, and so Enterprise was like it was stable money and benefits, and then he painted the rest of the time. And you're like, huh. And so I think learning everybody's role and kind of learning how to form a team,
Yeah.
and knowing that like there is only one CEO, which I think also kind of led me to discover later in life of like this whole like, well, if everybody just works hard, you can make whatever you want to make out of it. And it's like, yeah, but there's only one CEO.
Yeah.
So like, we could all work really hard, but like unless you leave, and I'm three layers below you. So, but yeah, I would say that was the biggest one. I think was learning how to build a team, and then like the whole like word is bond thing, like that you're only as good as whatever comes out of your mouth. And so, like some of my drivers were incredibly loyal, because if they had Johnny's T-ball game every Tuesday at 4, well, every Tuesday at 3, I sent them home. It didn't matter how busy we were, and the rest of the team knew that they were leaving. Because,
Right.
and you've got something tomorrow at 3, and you'll be out of here, and he'll cover for you. And so, like, we had a very transparent, and it was so weird because in the trucking industry that's so rare. You're like, F you, I've got you for 14 hours today. Get behind the wheel and drive till I tell you to stop. And I was like, no, that's cool, man. We'll make it work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I still have drivers that call me and wish me like happy Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas. It's
Oh,
been 12 years since I worked in that industry, and I still have some of my favorite. And they call me driver, which is always fun. I'm
that's
like, I didn't
awesome.
drive, but sure.
Yeah. Yeah, no, those are two great lessons. Thank you. And then the other follow up I had, which is a little bit of a tangent, but I'm curious to know. So you've mentioned Germany a couple of times, your mom. So did you grow up in a bilingual house? Did you have to learn it later? I know you still, even in our conversations, you speak it, you've traveled over there many times. I think you've worked with a B Corp there, things like that. So is it innate and you always had it growing up, or did you have to learn it later on?
This is the part where you get me to curse my mom. No, no, she did not teach me German as a child.
Really? Okay.
Why I said you're trying to get me, yeah, because I'm still bitter about it because that is a god awful language to learn.
Yeah, always
Um,
hard to learn as an adult
what
too.
did Mark Twain say? Like it's the only language where you don't know what happens to the end of the book. Uh, it's such a weird grammatical structure. Like because I to the grocery store went, like it's just like the way the verb structure. Anyway, I took it in high school.
Okay.
So and then I think when I was like 16, I went over for 3 weeks with one of my neighbor who was in my German class, whose great uncle was Konrad Adenauer, the first Democratic Chancellor of Germany. We went to Germany together,
Wow.
and oh yeah, she flexed in the Lufthansa lounge. It was pretty cool. She's like, "Do you need to see my ID?" He's like, "No, I need your father to be here with his member number." And she was like, "Why don't you just look at my ID?" And that guy gulped when he saw the last name Adenauer and was like, "I think we can do this as a favor to your father." She's like, "That's what I thought." And walked in. I was
Right.
like, whoa, that was cool. I was like, do you need to see my ID? He's like, no, you're fine. So So, and then the next summer I went over there and I played baseball in Braunschweig, which is like a beautiful little like college town, hundred some thousand, really clean German, and spent
Yeah.
the summer over there playing baseball and like third division team. And then so I just kind of went every summer, and that's really the only way to do it. You can learn it in books, or I'm doing Duolingo right now because we're going over in October. Yeah, I'm taking my mom for the first time, and then my cousin and his mom, who I've met the cousin, I've never met the mom, who's like some I don't like you get into like the old country family, and you're like I don't
Yeah.
know how we're related, but somebody's great uncle thing, and yeah, whatever, cuz. So, but yeah, so it just and I don't know, it was just very interesting, and like I just remember like kind of finally because they weren't really proud of being German because of
Okay.
the whole World War II thing apparently. So the 50s and 60s, and they came over like late 50s, and it wasn't like something that you were like, like versus now where you're like, that's right, our
Yeah.
soccer team's better than yours. What up?
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, no, it wasn't. So they immediately dropped citizenship. They just kind of like tried to blend in as best they could, and then I kind of come along, and I'm like, all I kind of started discovering, and then that I was not that they didn't tell me I was German, but just kind of like, and then you start taking the language, and then you listen to 99 Luftballons, and then it's down, it's little David Hasselhoff gets mixed in, and it goes downhill from there.
It's amazing all the things that you've been doing. I mean, you have such a rich career. I don't know, your career path has taken a really meaningful turn. You've done so many different things. From traditional corporate roles into the world of purpose-led leadership, and you kind of already answered this, but I want to know a bit more about what was there a particular moment that pushed you toward the B Corp movement and the conscious capitalism. So, what was it about the B Corp movement or conscious capitalism that really spoke to you on a personal level?
I mean, I always loved business, so I think it was just kind of one of those like I believed in all of it too. Like I talk about like international business to like try to convince my dad like here's why free trade and blah 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 and like like all these different things. And I think in a weird way my parents sent me to Georgia and were like, oh my god, he's gotten like conservatively brainwashed or something. And in reality, I was just like, I did international business, so I was kind of like, okay, this is all these principles, and you're 20, everything. But I think it was like the stuff that happened in 2013, 2014, where you're just like, this is some shady shit. Like this is like, I can't believe people operate like this. And you're just like, and I think at that point I was just so like beaten down. And like even the last job I had, like I legit thought I had it. Like they hired me to move to Stuttgart to run their German office, and I'm like, this is my whole life I've been working towards this moment. And then day one is just like, oh, it's a complete bait and switch. Like these people are awful human beings. I don't think I have a non-compete with them. It's been 10 years, so whatever. Um, I'll tell you the rest of the story offline. But yeah,
Right.
don't miss them. But yeah, you're like, I told all my friends I was moving to Germany, and they're like, dude, you've wanted this like your whole life. I'm like, yeah. And then it was like, just kidding. I'm not actually doing that. So like that one definitely broke me a little bit. And so yeah, I think just getting into like a B Corp project and being like, oh my God, this is it. This is what I've been looking for. Like this is when you treat people with like respect, and we care about things, and we do things in an honest and ethical way. And you're like, I knew business would come through for me. So I think just discovering that there was a version of capitalism that was trying to do better and was trying to treat people like more than a number and treat customers like more than a number. I think that was the aha moment for me where I was like, I found it. And so now I get to do some really cool work with companies and help them do the same thing. So yeah, it was but yeah, I think it all led up to that like culmination. And yeah, that was thinking you've gotten your dream
Yeah.
was pretty brutal.
Yeah. Well, you've certainly turned it into something that you believe in, love, thrive in doing. So, right now, you've launched Profitable Purpose Consulting, PPC. So, tell us more about the mission, why you could have gone to work at a B Corp, you could have done that. So why make the decision to help others get certified? And then what are some of the common challenges that you see?
So technically, I guess I did go to work for a B Corp, and then somebody wanted to pay me
Okay.
to do their B Corp certificate. So I started B Local Georgia. So I went to work for was Advic in 2017, and then I graduated later that year with my with my full time MBA. Whatever. Once you get a job, they're like, you need to take a call. That's fine. Go in there.
Yep.
Our statistics, you already hit the data part, which is be employed.
Yep.
So I went to work for them. I graduated. I stayed in Athens and worked remote. And then 2018, I started looking around. I went to the what was it the Good Leaders Summit or the good whatever it is, like the European version of Champions Retreat.
Okay.
By accident because it said summit and I thought that was a global thing and it was just Europeans. And then I begged my boss to like, I kind of screwed that one up. So can I go to this thing in New Orleans called Champions Retreat? And so I went to that. And then that's when I think I think in Amsterdam, I already knew that I'd met my people. When I met like the CEO of like Guayaki that makes yerba mate, and I was like, yeah, these are my hippie business people. But still was on stage saying things like, hey, just remember no purpose, no profit, or no profit, no purpose, no margin, no mission. Like where you're like some wow, that's really cool. And I ate like a seaweed burger, and I was like, this is nuts right now. So I went to Champions Retreat in New Orleans after that, and then that was when I came back and was like, all right, I'm starting to be local Georgia. We need a community, and I started kind of stepping into that void and got all the CEOs in a room when there were like 8 B Corps in Georgia, and there's like 30 plus now. And then I started the B Culture Call, which was like internally with like in one of the now it's an official network. That wasn't a thing back in the day. And then 2020, we decided we were bored during COVID. We were going to have a conference because there's these things called builds, like B Corp Leadership Development, more of a regional conference. And so we did a virtual one for Build Southeast. And then that led into, and then I think it was like early 2021, somebody approached me and said, hey, can I pay you to do this? And I went, okay. So they paid me, and my old CEO like helped me file my LLC, and like he was like, "Don't you dare leave yet. Keep this day job, build this thing up." And so I stayed for like another year and a half, and finally just kind of like took the leap. And it's been cool. It's been interesting. I've learned a lot. I've gotten out over my skis a couple times. I've I don't know. You just learn lessons. Like there's no like you can take every entrepreneurship class in the world until you kind of like oops, that you don't really know. So, but yeah, we've been doing this now over 4 years, which is nuts. I never
Yeah.
thought I'd be an
Clients
entrepreneur.
around
Right?
the world. Yeah, and you've had clients around the world. You've worked with a lot of those of us based in Georgia. One of the things that I commonly hear from B Corps, no matter where they are, is a lot of the mentality is already there. They're kind of there in the B Corp world. It's a matter of figuring out like documenting systems and processes and kind of formalizing and things like that. What are a couple of other things that you have seen as kind of trends or common threads?
I'd say the common thread is that even the best CEO um, thinks they're great when they meet me. And then you get into the assessment and they're like, yeah, we don't have that data. You're like, hey, so your website says you have 40 hours of volunteer time off a year. How many hours did you guys hit last year? They're like, we don't
Yeah,
track it. What percentage of your employees took it? We don't track it. And
right.
you're like, so like you realize the lack of data is nuts. Even at bigger companies, 100 plus employee, 200 plus employee, they have no idea. So
Right.
it's very. I think that is the thing. I think you're right that there's a common thread that the business owner, it's naturally ingrained. Like Enrique's a good example. Like I met him through like I think a conscious capitalism event. And we've been talking about B Corp since like 2018 when I think the first time I met him. And then by the time we finally worked together, it was so interesting. But yeah, you're right. It was like the process formalization and the codifying of things, and then just the pulling data and going like, okay, how great are we once we pull that data?
Yeah.
So, and how do we improve? And like, I think most people come into it thinking this is going to be like a 2 or 3 month, like bam, bam, pull some data, we're done. Which is what is which is what will anger you when you see stuff like, for like a certain soap company that was like, it's so easy to get now, and you're like, I will strangle you, sir. I have clients that have been like, we've been working on this for 2 years, and we're finally getting to verification. So it's yeah, I think that's the most common misconception too, is that it's just going to be a quick walk in the park, and we're already doing these things. Then you get in and you realize like, I don't even understand what they're asking for, man.
Mm, yeah. Wow. So, talking about more sustainability, so joining the 1% for the planet and becoming carbon neutral aren't small decisions. So, what was the motivation behind making those commitments for you?
Um, I think I don't know when I started using this expression. Don't tell me, show me. Like, and so I think that there's an element of like, I mean, especially for what I do, like kind of hard to be a B Corp consultant and not have the credentials. And I don't know. I think I joined like 1% for the planet. I had Kate speak at Build Southeast, and she was amazing. And if you let Kate share her vision for 1% for the planet, I mean, it wasn't. I mean, it was her, and it was our who started it. It was what's his name from Patagonia, Yvonne, and a couple others. But like when you hear Kate talk about it, like she's such a great ambassador for it. And then for the carbon neutral stuff, like I think it happened for me with at my old company when we were just kind of sitting there like what is the environment section for an IT consulting company? And we don't travel. Not really. I mean, there's a little bit of travel, but and then you start getting into it. You're like, the home offices and the regular office and the this and the that. And so we really just, I don't know, looked at that as an area of opportunity. And then I started to realize that like those ripples do matter. And so pretty much everybody I get now, I'm just like, have you met Anna? And I bring Anna Sampson from We Are Neutral in, and I know she's going to vet every project and every carbon sequestration metric and like all the things, and she's my expert, and I just send people to her. But I think for me, it's those, and I do have a footprint. I travel a lot for conferences and stuff, so it's not massive, but it is significant. And like she always preaches to me, like just keep things in equilibrium. Like if your main biz dev is going to that conference and shaking hands and kissing babies, go to the conference, shake hands and kiss babies, and then buy small sets.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a totally eye-opening part. You're right. We had Ryan Honeyman was speaking to our staff last week and mentioned like about 60%, I think, of B Corps worldwide are services, and so that's great. You don't have to track manufacturing. You don't have to do any of that. But then there is a lot that you just never considered before, from banking to, Nuria manages our website. So we've learned a lot just about the footprint of our website, things that you just don't, the footprint of AI, things like that you just don't consider because it's not physical, like you think of when you're talking about manufacturing or something like that. So it's definitely an eye-opening experience. And of course, talking about your background, one of the reasons that we chose to work with you, not only because we liked you and knew you were knowledgeable, is that there are very few logistics companies in the certification. We had to do a lot of educating B Corp about the logistics industry. And so, of course, that's our audience here. So given you've definitely been on both sides of that, what would you say to encourage more industry people, more logistics companies, supply chain related, even if they don't necessarily go through the process to certify, maybe just taking the assessment for benchmarking or something like that? What would you say to encourage them?
I mean, I'd tell anybody to take it from a benchmarking standpoint. I think that there's, I'm working with a client right now. Like, we don't know if we're going to get there. And we are right now. We're about to go through the audit. But, like, they told me recently that no matter what happens, this has been a beneficial. It was worth the investment to bring me in. It was worth everything just to kind of put this, I call it the long, hard look in the mirror.
Yeah.
I pretty much promise you're not going to love what you see because you think you're great, and then you start kind of peeling back the layers, and you're like,
Yeah.
ooh, ugh. And it's just those like incremental improvements that I think matter. And then I think as you get into this, you start to realize like all the data that you track and all the pieces of like it's better. As I talk to two marketing people, it's better storytelling. It's more real. I think to your employees, to potential employees, to customers of what you're doing and figuring out like it's pretty cool when you can say what percentage of revenue was this and what was that. And really, I mean, we're so trained is to only really look at revenue driven metrics as far as a margin or what was our profit or like the pay or retained earnings or all these things. Like we don't really look at like percentage of revenue that went to charitable donations or that went to volunteer time off. Or so it's pretty cool when we start to look at these things and put numbers around them. And again, I don't think it's going to make your company worse. I think it's just going to give you, again, even if you're not looking to certify, it's just going to give you new perspective. And I think there's also an element of like, what are best practices? Like what? Not saying we're all going to be like Patagonia or some of the higher scoring B Corps that have been that have 100-year head start on the rest of us doing
Yeah.
things sustainably. But I think there is an element of like, what are best practices? What should I be doing? What is a good volunteer time off policy? I don't know. What is a good percentage of revenue? You're like, oh, the max one is this, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, we're probably not going to get there. And then I think also just the whole stakeholder mapping process of like, I always tell people if you eat everything, the B Corp certification is kind of like buffet line. If you eat everything on the buffet line, you will not feel well. It'll ruin your Vegas trip. So, figuring out what you should be eating and also then like the process with the CEO of like when they're like, well, I'm really passionate about this. What matters to your people? Oh, hadn't thought about that. And getting them to actually kind of go through the stakeholder mapping process of like, who are my stakeholders? What matters to my stakeholders? I mean, you can do a full materiality assessment. Or you can just do a survey. Hey, employees, which rank these benefits? Which ones, and like start to figure out like, well, they honestly don't care about the volunteer time off. Okay, that happens. Or they'd rather, they don't. Most of them are young and not married. They don't need all the like an adoption benefit. Like, there's just so interesting to go through that and figure out what does matter, and then also then to go to your marketing team and go, what kind of stories can we tell with what? And start to put that whole thing together to like really figure out how to make. I don't want to say again, it always sounds so sleazy, but we need to get over this as a community of like we are for-profit businesses. We
Yeah.
haven't. Some of us have investors we need to show returns to. Our employees want raises and bonuses. So like to say that like, how do we do this in a way that differentiates us from our competition and helps us make more money, capture more market share? Like that's not a bad thing. It means we can create more awesome jobs. It means we can pay our people more. It means we can invest in more impact. It means all those things. So, just yeah, that's what I would tell most people is like look at this as an investment in the business. I think we look at these things too much as like a P&L standpoint. They're all L's, and I think they drive a lot of the P. And I don't think we necessarily connect those dots.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree that measure all your efforts is so important, especially when you invest a lot of effort into doing lots of different things. If you can measure, you can. So sometimes people just don't understand. So that helps you also to make more better decisions for the future. But anyway, let's talk about your book, Happy Monday. What a lovely name. What a great name, especially for a day like today, for a Monday like today. And it's also available on Amazon. And it's such a great title, anyway. So, what inspired you to write it? And what was the takeaway that you hope people remember after reading that book?
God, what did I write a book for?
That's all that work for. Yeah.
So much work. I don't. I think I felt like w- when I was 20, 21. How old was I when I graduated? 20. I don't think I turned 21 yet. I don't remember. Like I felt like there was this like straight path to success. And I think so many times in my 20s and 30s, and I mean even to this day, there's those days where you're like, you're a total failure, dude. And I think like that whole long and winding road to get to where I got, and then like the coming out of the other side of like all the layoffs, and those some depressing days driving an Uber or getting treated like the help, and bartending, getting like lectured by somebody who just graduated with like a hospitality degree, who's your boss at like Levy restaurants in the convention center now, and you're like, no, never mind. Apparently, I don't know anything. Like some of those experiences are just so humbling. They're like, I think I wrote it more so to give kind of younger people maybe a little bit of a roadmap of like some of the things I wish I had probably done earlier. And then I think also though for the person that was in their 30s, that what was I when I wrote that book? Was it a couple years ago? I was probably, we'll just say I was in my mid 30s. I just winked. Like I think that like not to give up the hope of like figuring out where you want to get to, and like, but also if you don't, I think the main takeaway is if you don't take action towards what you want, you will never get it. And I think a lot of people like and it's weird since I've written it, like I don't want to say I've like cut people out of my life, but I'd have less time for people that complain and don't do anything about what they're complaining about. Sooner or later, like if you're not gonna change, then we can still be friends. Just quit, bitch. Just stop. I don't care. I don't want to hear it anymore. It's the same thing every time. And so go get a different job then. Like, go do something else. I don't know what to tell you. Like, I of course have that like fixer mindset where I'll sit there and be like, well, what would make you happy? Let's reverse engineer this. Let's figure out how to get you there. And like, so it just gets very frustrating to me where I'm like, if you want to do something, like I met somebody right before we hit record on this, and they found Be Local Georgia, and they've loved B Corps, and they were so excited to meet me and pick my brain, and how did you grow your business, and da da da, and how would you sell to that? It was literally even the question, how would you sell to this prospect if you were me? I'm like, I don't know, let's whiteboard it out. But like that like knowing and like what rooms do I need to be in to continue to like build my network in this space? I'm like, honestly, just go to anything I go to, and you can attach yourself at the hip, and I'll introduce you to people. And like the fact that you've taken this step already, like I got you. And there's a student same way. He just kind of he heard me speak, and he's like, I bought your book, and like he's quoting me out of the book. I'm like, did I say that? Um,
It was really good.
but he
Yeah.
wanted to like intern. I'm like, brother, I don't have any. Like, we're a small outfit here. I don't have any intern budget, but I'm happy to like buy you a beer every. He's a senior graduating from UGA. I'm like, I'll buy you a beer every once in a while. And we can just philosophize about good business and what this looks like. And so it's been rewarding. Like even though like I knew I was never going to be like a New York Times bestseller, it's really fun, especially when somebody goes like, "Hey, I read your book and it really hit home," and you're like, "Cool." Then that was enough. If I got 2 to 3 people, I don't know.
No, that's awesome. And it's very, yes, it's very indicative of your personality as well. As another thing that you said there too, that I want to go back to, like the stop complaining, get out and do it. That is definitely you as well. And so one of the things when Nuria asked you the quick questions at the beginning, she asked you your favorite hobby, and you said picking up trash, which is funny. But if people follow you on LinkedIn, half your photos are you out on the highway picking up trash, and so you're definitely talking the talk, walking the walk there. And so you're definitely you practice what you preach for sure. And you've put so much time into that. Running a company is not easy. There's a lot going on, a lot that you have to manage. So, making your own time for volunteering, you volunteer to lead Be Local Georgia. You have introduced me to people. You definitely, what you said is true. If you attend an event with you, you'll be like, oh, let's go meet this person. I want you to meet this person. And so that's definitely you as well. So what motivates you, I guess, to spend so much time investing in others and building a stronger, like, local B Corp community?
I think I recognize that like for this thing to be successful, we have to have successful businesses. And so I think there's an element within the B Corp community of like making those valuable connections and like wanting, I mean, not even just clients, but like B Corp community members to like find an ROI. Like, why did I put Build Southeast together? Why am I still doing that? God. I'm like, can I be emeritus board member? Y'all got it. Here's the formula. You got it. But anyway, I think a lot of that though is just very important to me because like if we're going to teach business in this way in business schools, like that to me is like when we start changing the world, when we change how we teach business. Like the fact that I had a case study about like a bottled water crisis because we drained the well too far and it pulled in from the aquifer and it had da 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 from the farm fields and pesticides and the baby's dead and now get out of it. Shareholders are angry, go. And you're like, why is this a case? And I came up and literally went, we just decided to take the sales hit and not sell the water, and nobody died, and that's the end of it. And they were like, no, but you have to do the thing. And I'm like, nah, that's dumb. Why would... So like we have to change how we teach. Like the fact that we teach crisis management from when you get caught with your hand in the cookie jar is ludicrous, but the only way we can do that is if we show that this is a very successful form of running a business, and not necessarily just the B Corp thing, but that this like purpose and profit, that it makes for it's kind of like we say, diverse teams perform better. Like we have to kind of continue to keep proving that. We have to continue to prove that like purpose driven companies perform better. And guess what? Like, and I've said this all along, and everybody gets mad at me because I'm talking about like the supply and demand curves and all these like. Remember when B Lab tried to go like, oh, it's the stakeholder driven economic system? I'm like, shut up, it's capitalism. Like that's never gonna sell outside of Portland. I'm sorry, it's got to be capitalism. And it's just what we've let capitalism become is bad. But if we can prove that these things work, like that demand curve, like we keep capitalism. Why? Because the demand curve is the most powerful thing we have. And if the demand curve for this shifts, guess what? Every business is going to follow us. And again, it comes back to like me not caring if if your drive to certify as a B Corp was recruitment and retention, or we think we can sell more. If it made you a better company and your employees have a better job and like your supply chain's taken better care of and downstream suppliers are actually paid living wages, like cool, hope you make more money. So that I think drives me in a lot of these like things that I do. And then the trash thing I think is just, I don't know, it's just good therapy. Like you just got like I can literally just walk out of my house in any direction. I can go pick up trash for an hour and come up with 3 or 4 bags of trash. And some days I hit a little, what Chad and I like to call a honey hole. Behind the liquor store is usually good, but that's also now led me down this whole rabbit hole of like, why are there airplane minis behind the liquor store? Like, because we don't have solutions for our homeless population and we let them sit outside and drink themselves to death. Well, why do we do that? Because, yeah. So, like, all of a sudden now I've become this advocate where I go to litter abatement steering committee meetings. I am about to go to my first homeless coalition meeting. I've like emailed like a county commissioner to I'm like, hey, these storm drains are really backed up, or it looks like there's an encampment back there that's abandoned. Like, can we go clean it up? Like, they get so worried about me because I'm like, oh, just cleaned up an encampment. They're like, dude, you can't be going to encampments. I'm like, somebody's got to clean it up. And I also look as like an advocate for the homeless because if things do get filthy, I mean, we do have a problem we need to address, but also though it's kind of cool when you give them purpose because you go talk to them when you're out, and I know all the ones on my street, and they all take bags from me, and so I'll see bags around like Hawthorne and around my part of Athens where like they've bagged up all their trash and put it out. They know where to put it. County comes and gets it, so it's been kind of cool too to see them like take ownership of their space. And it's not the long term solution, but gives them something to do, and I don't know, it's just kind of fun to run into them, and they're always very grateful, and yeah, it's just become a weird therapeutic activity for me to be out there, and they call me Trash Man. So, what up, Trash Man? You're like, what's up, man? How you doing? So it's been a lot of fun to get to know my local community that most people just literally drive right past.
Right.
So yeah, I need hobbies.
That's
B Corp and trash.
yeah. No, but
And your
that's
Christmas
really
decorations.
yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
And I think that's well, I guess that in the US you do the same, but here in the UK they well picking trash from the beach or from the streets. It's something that is embedded within the curriculum in the education since very early years. So, which is amazing. I didn't have that opportunity. I didn't live it like that. I'm older than that. And it feels like also younger professionals today are thinking of purpose earlier in their career. so than ever before. So I know that you work closely with students at the University of Georgia through the MBA program. So I'm curious about what kind of questions or concerns are you hearing from them, and also what advice do you usually give them?
I think it's really cool getting to work with the MBAs because they're a little bit older. I mean, they're like 23, 24 usually. I was the old one. I was like 32 when I did mine. Now people are doing the math on that one. Luckily, the lighting's good. Nobody can see how gray this beard is. The common theme, because we still get the traditional MBAs that have no desire to take my elective, and then there's the people. Although I've had a couple that surprised me, where I'm like, I didn't feel like you'd be in a B Corp class, and I think that the coolest thing about that is they come in, and I think they're expecting me to give them the gas can to like burn it all down. And in reality, like I have to take this like arsonist like mentality and turn him into an architect of like, no, you're gonna go to some like none of you were like I think in all the years we've been doing this class, if you count me, which it wasn't a B Corp class yet, maybe three of us have gone to actually work for B Corps. Most people don't. They just work on the project and they. But I'm teaching like you're gonna end up at a Keurig Dr Pepper. You're gonna end up at a Coca Cola, at a Delta, at a UPS, at a Home Depot, like these big Fortune 500s, and like I'm just teaching you how to make the business case. Because if you walk into a CFO's office and you tell them, but it's the right thing to do, and the ice caps, and the like, buddy, like, look, we got payroll to make. And like, the more you get into this world, it seems very callous, but like, and you have a fiduciary duty to do these things. So like, you have to be able to make the business case for good business. And so I kind of take that little like burn it to the ground mentality and let them know like, how do you you're not going to change the past. So it's kind of like the argument against Nespresso, or, like some of the, like where you're like, dude, you don't want to look at any, or like the Salvation Army. I made some about the homeless thing. I went and met the captain, and then somebody was like, oh, dude, you know the things that they've done? And I'm like, there's not an organization probably anywhere in the world, let alone the United States for sure, that's more than 50 years old that you're going to love everything you find. You start opening up drawers and closets and ooh. And so like, how do you architect the future though? Because there's only so much you can do, but we can't just cancel everybody till the end of time because they haven't led a perfect life or their institution isn't perfect. Like, no, you aren't either. So like, how do you just continuously improve? And I think that's the mindset that I'm trying to give these students is like, I see, I hear you. Yes, it is appalling. It's gross or just whatever. It's racist. It's misogynistic. It's a million things, but be a part of the future. Like 20 years ago, there was not a B Corp class at the University of Georgia. We printed like commercial real estate and finance degrees. When I went, it was an undergrad, and now I'm teaching a B Corp class. What's 20 years from now going to look like? We have a social impact class. We have an entrepreneurship program that's thriving. Like we have all these things, and 20 years from now, maybe I don't even know what it'll look like, but I want to be a part of that, and so I try to invite them to join me on that journey. Because like I always joke too, I was like, you can burn UGA to the ground; they'll rebuild it without you. We got plenty of money. You seen that indoor practice facility? So, so yeah, trying to get them, inspire them to action, to careers that are full of action, that actually make the world a better place and don't. We got enough of the people sitting at home whining on their keyboards. Either do something about it or get out of the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Very true in so many ways. Thank you.
I feel like I'm getting more and more heated as this thing goes on.
Yes,
I'm like,
I know.
ah.
I'm gonna stand up and start.
The old, what was it, Howard Dean back in the day? And we're oh, never mind. I just really dated myself. That was like the 2004 election, but whatever.
That's all right.
Google it, kids.
Yes, now everybody has total insight into our one-on-one meetings as well. Well, as we start looking towards, we could hang out here all day, but we all have other things to do as well, and so do our listeners, and you've got trash to pick up. So let's talk about Be Local Georgia. Certainly a love of yours as well. It has been, as you said, whenever you first got involved with this movement, there were only a couple. I think now we're at 32 or something like that.
Yeah.
With a few more about.
There's so many in verification right now. Oh God.
Yeah, and a bunch in verification.
Pray
stage.
for the consultant.
So, yes. And so just in our little state where the Vector headquarters is, what, we'll kind of use that as a microcosm. What are you seeing as trends, things that you're excited about that you think will continue to ripple out?
I think I'm seeing a resiliency as far as like people wanting this year, like specifically, like given the climate of like, are people going to just kind of like go away or, um, I've always said I think the toothpaste is kind of out of the tube. I think people like if you're a good business person, like I mean, let's be real too. Like some of these companies, even though they're rolling back their like they just move buildings and change the pictures on the wall, like they're and then maybe the strategy's evolved, hopefully. Um, but I think we're seeing more and more companies want to take this leap, and I think honestly from some of the stuff that's like quote unquote canceled, ESG, DEI, whatever we call it now, inclusive economy, whatever. I think the trends I'm seeing is, and I'm a very outspoken advocate for this, is more of a, again, I'm going to use this again, but show me, don't tell me. Like I think you're starting to see more maybe action oriented things is either funding dries up or whatever. Like I think you're starting to see more solutions come out of the B Corp purpose driven community of like that some of this stuff was performative all along. So I think something like a B Corp community where you actually have to quantify things is actually has a certain appeal right now where you're like, oh well, yeah, and then also just the best practice. So like I mean, it was weird because it was kind of a similar to 2020 with COVID and
Sure.
everybody kind of like, oh, the demand will go away. Everybody's just going to try to batten down the hatches and survive. And then like B Lab got hit with this like burst of demand because everybody decided to double down on their values. So I think you're going to see some of that. But I also think, the pivotal moment for our community is, can we pivot to making the business case? Like, I think again, we just like, there's a reason I think Build Southeast has been so popular the last 2 years is because I think we speak a little more general business and a little less like singing Kumbaya on the beach around like a fire pit. Again, not that I'm not down with that, but I think for mainstream success, I think we have to be a little more, you know, a little more like, how do I use this? How do I, like even if you're kind of come to a conference, what are my actionable takeaways? I already know why I'm doing this. Like Enrique and I don't need to sit in a room and hear somebody tell me about the need for, environmental action or something like that. Like we're already on board, man. Like, but how do I use this? Like, how do I inspire others? How do I use it to drive my business? So like, I think it'll be a pivotal time for us of can we figure that out? And then hopefully also can we come together it's one of the reasons that soap company angered me so much was a little bit of a read the room of now's not the time to be trying to like burn it down and take your football and storm home. Like, dude, just like, come on, man. We really do need to come together as a purpose driven business community right now to figure out how do we like and get rid of the ideological purity test of I have the highest score. Like, shut up. Just like we're all in this together. And it should be if you're at an 81 or 160 or whatever, like if we are aligned towards the same goals, we do not need to be trying to take each other out right now. And I think
Yeah.
that was kind of a serious disconnect that they missed when they did their whole announcement and the way they did it. So I didn't even say who, I just said soap company, but y'all can Google it. But yeah, I think that's our pivotal moment. Are we going to do that to each other for the next couple of years, or are we going to figure out a way to just kind of say like, hey, let's come together and really build this thing and stop trying to. It's like grandma's boy. High score? Did I break it? Like you just like let's just do this work and like reverse engineer what we need to do to get the work done, and let's work towards those goals and stop nitpicking.
Yeah. Excellent point.
Awesome. Nathan, before we wrap up, I'd love to ask you a question. What does logistics with purpose means to you, especially coming with your background in logistics?
I think I've seen it because I worked for the company that I really liked, and I worked for another one where like I think there's an element in that industry because the margins can be so thin that like there is I don't say a lean towards like exploitation because it sounds too weird, but like I really have seen that industry be a place where like people are just numbers, and it is a hard industry too. Like it is, I mean, freight brokerage, like some of that, like you're just dialing for dollars all day long. Somebody got to get this, and you're trying to find. Or like for me back in the day, it was like, well, the client needs us to take this load to Lansing. We don't have anybody. Like we do Northeast Georgia. Like
Yeah.
make it happen, and take that whole plan you had, rip it up, and start a new one. Call that driver that already went home and tell him he's doing something else in the morning. So, like, I think logistics with purpose just means like a new way of doing this kind of work where we can put a little bit of humanity into a. I mean, it is. It's. I mean, granted, there's more shipping with what y'all do than OTR and LTL, but like, it is still a grind of an industry, and so I think kind of putting some humanity back into it and showing that that can be done profitably and that we can scale and grow, and some of the cool stuff y'all do in the community with like the Ukraine and some of the books and like all these cool things that I got to learn about working with y'all. I think that to me is logistics with purpose, that it doesn't have to just be like margin first. And like, let's be real too, like stereotypically I can sit here and just be like, there were a lot of F-bombs at the places I work. Not that I don't swear like a sailor, but it was just kind of like, you tell that effing guy to F in this, and you're like, and you see a lot of the warehousing. There's I mean, the pay isn't always great. The stress is very high. So to me, logistics with purpose is, yes, treating people with dignity, paying them for a full day's work for what they're worth, and hopefully making that an example for the rest of the industry to follow.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. So, Nathan, last but not least, where can our listeners go to connect with you and learn more about the great work that you are doing at Profitable Purpose Consulting?
I'm pretty much on the LinkedIn. I'd love to say that I quit all the sorry, that just the storm is here. That just caught my attention. So you notice I had to turn a lamp on halfway through this. I would say LinkedIn. Sorry, I don't know if this is live or if you're gonna edit it out, but
Looking at it.
Yeah.
okay. 3, 2. You can find me on LinkedIn. It's just Nathan A. Stuck on LinkedIn, and then Profitable Purpose Consulting, B Local Georgia. We're all on LinkedIn, and that's pretty much all I use. Build Southeast is on LinkedIn. That's been my go-to. I keep saying I'm going to use more Instagram, and I just don't have the discipline or the time.
Nope, that's totally fine. Yes, and you're there. People learn a lot more about B Corps, B Local Georgia, Profitable Purpose Consulting. They will see pictures of you picking up trash. They will see pictures of your hundreds of Christmas decorations. So it's a great way to go and connect with you and learn about you from both a business and a purpose side. So thank you so much for being here. This was so fun. It's been a long time coming. I'm glad to give people insight into the conversations that we have behind the scenes.
Hopefully somebody's still listening.
Surely somebody out there. My mom. Hi, Mom. So thank you so much for being here. Nuria, I'm so glad to co-host with you. Again, it's been a long time, so hopefully it won't be the last by any means. And thank you, of course, to our listeners. We love telling good news in the logistics industry, and this is the only podcast focused on supply chain's positive impact. So if you love stories like these, we'll have another awesome one in 2 weeks. Be sure to join us, tell your friends, and of course, subscribe. Thanks so much for being here, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.